Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. In today's episode, guilty of doing a good job. Following directions to adhere to company food safety procedures cost the company in excess of AUD 25,000. Testing the fire alarm and testing me. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Guilty of doing a good job. This happened to me a few years back. I was working in the IT help desk of a well-known restaurant based in Chicago. I had gotten the job through the help of a friend of mine, who was the help desk manager at the time. My friend was very adamant about checking in on the help desk ticket metrics and making sure that everyone in the team was pulling their own weight. Basically, for those who don't know, most help desks use a ticketing system to keep track of all IT requests that come in. Anyway, my friend was known for being good about his particular ticket metrics tracking and being able to decipher them and later present them to the leadership team. However, he was laid off due to a squabble he had with one of the directors of a different department. This had happened at the same time that a new CIO was hired. In comes a new IT manager, who had eventually admitted to me that he was actually close friends with the CIO and that had never held a management position ever in his life. I found out that his skill set was in programming and scripting, but his weakness was confrontation as well as other management procedures. However, his biggest flaw was that he followed processes and procedures to a T. One of those being that, for some god-awful reason, we were not allowed to discuss any tickets with anyone. This was supposed to be interpreted as the help desk not being able to discuss tickets to other individuals outside of the IT department due to the sensitivity of their nature. If I brought up ticket to my manager, he would shut me up and say he didn't want to hear about it. About a month went by when the time came for metrics evaluations. I was escorted into a conference room by my manager. He tells me that out of all the individuals of the IT help desk, I had the most reopened tickets in the queue. I should mention that by this point of my time working there, my manager had decided to push my shift from the regular first shift, 9 to 5, over to second shift, which was from 1 to 10. This was to provide coverage for shops outside of our time zone. I explained to him that there were a plethora of reasons why I had opened tickets. One being that every day that I came in, I was stuck working at the mass amount of tickets that the morning shift neglected to touch. I was on my own working from 6 to 10, and ultimately, the main reason to my reopens I could not discuss, per his policy. He got really angry with me and said that I needed to improve my numbers and get less reopened tickets. Instead of arguing, I simply complied and went on my way. Another month went by, and by this time, I had accrued more tickets in my name, which also meant more tickets being reopened. I get called into a meeting again, and this time it's with my boss, the CIO, and the head of HR. They bring up my reopened ticket count, and I again explain the same gripes from the past. They placed me on a corrective action program, and simply told me, if you can't fix by the next time we meet, we are going to have to fire you. My immediate response was, well, if you fire me, I will seek legal counsel. I told you that I cannot discuss my tickets with you thanks to my manager's strict policy guidance. He has the ability to go look at the tickets but refuses. The CIO threatened to get the ticket system vendor to send a specialist to get a fully detailed report to see just how bad I was doing. I kept my cool and simply said, sure, let's go with that. If you see that I really have been failing, then I will voluntarily quit. The following week, the vendor shows up and he is set up in one of the conference rooms. I would swing by from time to time, asking if he needed anything. He knew who I was by this point, and all he would say is, this is funny as hell, I can't wait to provide this report. Towards the end of the day, I get called into the conference room. I see my manager, the CIO, the head of HR, the vendor, and now even the CEO of the company. My manager is pale as if he'd seen a ghost. The CIO couldn't look at me in the eye and was at a loss of words. I broke the silence and, without trying to appear smug, asked, is everything alright? The vendor excitedly announces, well kid, the only thing you are guilty of is being a damn good employee. The CEO immediately interrupted and apologized on behalf of the company for having put me through so much crap. At this point, I knew exactly what happened, but I wanted to hear it straight from the source. I look at the vendor and ask him to read out the rest of the report. He then says, with you being the only individual to close the most tickets compared to all of your colleagues combined, you have the reopen rate of about 95%. Out of those 95%, only 2% are reopened due to the fixes not sticking or due to a completely irrelevant issue, which you all should let your employees know to create new tickets for rather than reopening a previous ticket. As for the other 93%, they are all people responding, thanking you for your work. He almost couldn't contain his laughter while presenting the physical report. He further went on to mention that all this could have been avoided had I been able to discuss these tickets with my boss, or if my boss even bothered to actually go look at the tickets themselves. About another month later, my boss tells me that he wants to promote me to the IT lead position as well as give me a raise. I turned it down. It was the perfect opportunity for me and told him I was putting in my 2 weeks' notice. He tried talking me out of it, but there was no way he could convince me. I basically told him that any confidence and trust one had with the company was destroyed during my earlier debacle. My raise at the time was withheld due to his own mistakes, and there was no way the company would be able to match the offer I was being given at the new gig. Following directions to adhere to company food safety procedures cost the company in excess of AUD 25,000. Several years ago, I was working as the manager of the meat department in a large Australian supermarket chain. I'd been pulled up for minor issues relating to food safety in the past, mainly relating to temperature checks and cabinet cleaning. During the discussions about these issues, I was told, as well as recorded in writing, that the food safety guidelines are a legal document and are not up for negotiation or interpretation, and must be adhered to the letter. Remember that quote. Fast forward to a few days before Christmas. My store was one of the busiest in the region, so the meat case and cool rooms were packed to the absolute max with stock, hams, roasts, turkeys, the whole works. It was the same store-wide, absolutely maxed out. Christmas in Australia is unlike most other places, it gets hot. Damn hot. On this particular day, the temperature outside was pushing 45 degrees Celsius, approximate 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Aircon and fridges were all working hard to keep everything cool, when suddenly at about 3 p.m., we have a store-wide blackout. Usually, we have a backup generator which would kick in and keep the cool rooms running, so that worst case, stock could be emptied out of the cabinets and into the rooms to keep it food safe. Well, for some reason, the generator didn't kick in, and the store was completely without power and running on emergency lighting only. We evacuated the store and were contacting technicians, etc. to get things running again. I checked the food safety guidelines book, and the policy in such a situation was to monitor the temperature of stock every 15 minutes, and if it reaches over 4 degrees Celsius and stays there for more than 2 hours, all affected stock must be discarded. Being such a hot day, the temperature had already breached the 4 degrees upper limit when I did the first check, meaning the countdown was on to get things running again. I documented absolutely every step of the way, following the guidelines to the letter. At 4:45 p.m., with 15 minutes to go until the deadline, I went to the office and got a handheld scanner in preparation for what was to come, and was spotted by the store manager, who asked what I was doing. I told him that I was getting it to begin dumping stock. We argued back and forth with him, saying that the stock would be fine, and that a refrigerated truck was on the way to move everything into. It ended in me saying the guidelines are a legal document. By ordering me to go against what they say, you're instructing me to break the law, which I am respectfully refusing. At 5 p.m. I began scanning off and dumping stock from my case. I'd already almost filled an entire dumpster with stock when the refrigerated truck turned up. The manager once again instructed me and the fellow department managers to take our now unsafe stock and move it into the truck. Everyone hesitated, but I flat out refused and continued dumping my stock. He eventually revoked my access to the handheld scanner in order to stop me, so I called the area manager, his boss, and explained the situation and what he had instructed. Area manager said although it was never public, there was actually some built-in wiggle room between the company policy and the legislated state code, and that although it breaches the company policy, the state food safety code hadn't yet been breached, but was furious that the store manager had instructed me to intentionally breach the company policy. I told the area manager that I had been instructed and documented to follow the food safety guidelines to the absolute letter, and that the policy was non-negotiable and not up for interpretation. He agreed that I had done the correct thing by dumping the stock, and also agreed that I was within my rights to refuse the orders of the store manager, thinking they were illegal. All in all, I dumped about $25,000 of stock, and my team got a ton of overtime to bring the case and stock levels back up to presentable standard for Christmas. The manager got a very severe reprimand and was fired for an unrelated issue not long after. Testing the fire alarm and testing me. Going back about 16 years, I worked in an entry-level admin job which included taking phone calls from people wanting repairs to their social housing. Lots of angry people calling. Being the helpful young chap I also volunteered to test the fire alarm in the building with a couple of other colleagues. This was done at 9 a.m. every Monday morning. One morning I'd had a particularly obnoxious caller and didn't get off the phone until about 9:15 a.m. Straight after, I made my way to the alarm panel at the other end of the building, and we did the test, no issues, or so I thought. Few hours later my manager calls me to go see her. She is fairly new. Turns out she wants to point out the importance of doing the alarm on time, I shouldn't be late doing it, and that I should organize my time better, etc. I tell her the best option is if I stop doing the tests. Since I can't guarantee I am always free at 9 a.m. For example, if someone calls at 8:40 a.m. and chews my ear off for 30 minutes, I am definitely not gonna put them on hold and piss them off more. Manager says I should stop spitting my dummy out and being sulky and petulant. I agreed that I would carry out the tests at 9 a.m. sharp in future. Next few weeks pass and the manager is getting complaints from callers that either they get cut off or inexplicably put on hold. She notices this happens around 9 a.m. Mondays, and the complaints all relate to calls involving me. Yep, I was either just cutting callers off completely, or putting them on hold for however long it took, to make sure that alarm was done at 9 a.m. Any callers wanting to speak to my manager? But of course sir/madam, here are her contact details. Needless to say I stopped having to do the alarm and my manager had to do it instead as nobody else was able to. Manager and I continued to work for the same employer, although I went off in a different team. We bumped into one another on training courses etc. for some time, and she was always frosty, had a reputation for it by that time, until recently when she was laid off and I did not find it hilarious at all. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.